Out past the low red glow of the fire, something was moving in the dark. She couldn't see it. She didn't need to. The birds had stopped. The small rustling things had fallen silent all at once. And she knew that silence, the way you know a sound that means a thing, is hunting. The child lay against her chest, breathing slow and warm. One small hand curled into the hide she'd wrapped around them both. The others slept. And the fire, the one thing the dark would not cross, had burned down lower than she could bear. She pulled the child in tighter. The question keeping her awake was not whether the thing out there was hungry. It was whether the fire would last until morning, and what she would do if it didn't. To the thing in the dark, the child was not a child. It was the easiest meal on the whole hillside. This is the part we flinch from, because we've sat at the top of everything so long that we've forgotten our young were ever on a menu at all. But for almost the entire stretch of our existence, a small human was precisely what a hunting cat goes looking for. Low to the ground, soft, slow, no horns, no real speed, and separated by even a few careless steps from the adults who might fight back. A leopard doesn't want to struggle. It wants the one that wandered, the one asleep at the edge instead of the middle, the one whose mother, for a single moment, looked the other way. And she knew this in her body, not as a fact, but as a fear that never fully switched off. It was why she slept the way she did, half under, half awake, surfacing at every shift of the wind. It was why this child, in its whole short life, had never been more than an arm's reach from someone who loved it. Not once. Not in daylight, and never, ever in the dark. We are not guessing at any of this. In a cave in southern Africa, searchers once lifted a small skull out of the old packed stone. A child, one of our distant relatives, gone for well over 1,000,000 years. And in the back of that little skull were two holes, two clean punctures. Side by side, set apart by an exact and terrible distance, someone laid the lower jaw of a fossil leopard against them. The fangs fit, perfectly. That is how a leopard carries what it has killed. By the head, the long lower canines sunk into the back of the skull, the body swinging beneath as the cat climbs into a tree to eat in peace, up above the reach of everything else. This child had been lifted exactly that way, taken up into the branches. What dropped back down was found 1,000,000 years later by people who finally understood what the holes meant. So the dread she felt was not some shapeless unease about the night. It was specific. It had a weight and a way of moving. It came low and silent through the grass on a thin moon night, and it did not roar a warning the way the lions did. It made no sound at all until the moment sound no longer mattered. And the only thing standing between it and the small, warm body in her arms was a fire she had to keep alive with. Her own tired hands. So she fed it. That was the answer to the dark. Not a weapon, not a wall, but a fire that someone refused to let die. This is the quiet thing we rarely picture when we picture cave people. Someone was always awake. The fire was never a thing you lit and forgot. It was a thing you tended in shifts through the whole long night, one person surfacing as another sank down, a slow handing off of the watch that no one ever named because it didn't need naming. She reached out now without looking and laid another piece of wood into the red, and the light climbed, and the edge of the dark stepped back to where she could bear it. A hunting cat can be the most patient thing alive, but it will not walk into fire. It will not cross into that ring of moving light and smoke and the smell of burning, because everything in it that has kept it alive says no. So the people built their lives around that single refusal. They slept ringed around the flame, the smallest ones tucked deepest in. The adults turned outward like a living wall. The fire didn't have to kill anything. It only had to make the easy meal stop being easy, to turn a sleeping child at the edge into a thing surrounded by light and bodies, and the one element nothing else out there would touch. And there was a second wall, softer than the first, that she trusted even more. It was the others. No mother in that circle was carrying the night alone. There were aunts, grandmothers, older children, hunters with their backs to the fire and their faces to the trees. A single human in the dark with an infant is prey. A band of them, awake in turns, watching every approach, ready to stand and shout and throw. That is something even a leopard learns to leave alone. They survived the night the way they survived everything, together. But knowing all that did not make the waiting easy. It only gave her something to do with the fear. Her eyes burned. She had not slept a full night through in longer than she could remember. Her arm had gone numb under the child's weight an hour ago, and she had not moved it, would not move it, because a sleeping child is a quiet child. And quiet was the whole point. She listened to its breath. She had learned every sound it made the way she'd learned the sounds of the night. Which snuffle meant a dream, and which meant waking. Which stillness was peace, and which was the held breath before a cry that might carry. She pressed her lips to the warm crown of its head and felt the soft pulse there. Alive, hers. And under the love was the thing she would never say aloud. That she was so tired. That part of her only wanted to lie down and let her eyes close and trust the dark to be kind for once. She did not lie down. She fed the fire instead. We tell ourselves the cave was the safe place, the shelter, the home. It wasn't. The cave was a mouth in the rock that things came into. The very darkness a leopard liked best. The very overhang that gave a hunting cat its roof and its shadow. The walls didn't keep the danger out. They only decided where it would have to come from. The safety was never the place. The safety was the people in it. And the fire they would not let go out. And the simple unspoken law that no small one was ever left alone at the edge. Stone doesn't protect a child. The shelter she trusted had no roof and no walls at all. It was made of bodies and burning wood, and the refusal to sleep. The fire was getting low again. She could see it in the red. The flames had sunk to a sullen glow, and the wood beside her had come down to a few thin pieces that would not last the night. The dark at the cave mouth had begun, slowly, to lean back in. And the silence out there had not broken. Whatever had stopped the small night sounds an hour ago had not moved off. It was still there. It was waiting for exactly this, for the light to fail. She had a choice now, and neither half of it was good. She could let the fire burn down to keep what little fuel was left for the coldest hour before dawn, and sit in the thinning glow with the dark coming closer. Or she could feed it hard, now, and buy back the light, and risk having nothing left when the true cold came and the child began to shiver. She fed it. She broke the last good piece across her knee and laid both halves into the coals and leaned in and breathed on it, low and steady, the way she had done 1,000 nights, until the flame caught and stood and threw its heat against her face, and the dark fell back once more to where it belonged. The child stirred at the brightness, and she hushed it against her, swaying, the old motion her own mother must have made over her, and her mother's mother, back and back, a line of women rocking children at the edge of firelight for longer than anyone could count, and out past the new light, there, a shape, low to the ground, and the wet shine of an eye, catching the flame for 1/2 second before it turned away. It turned away. Not because she had frightened it. A leopard does not fear one tired woman. It turned because of the fire, and the smell of smoke, and the dim shapes of other bodies it could make out in the glow. All the calculations of a careful hunter coming up the same way they always did at a well-kept fire. Too much risk, too much light, too many of them, not worth it tonight. It melted back into the dark it had come from. And she sat with her heart slamming, and her arms locked around her child, and did not move for a long, long time, until the first gray of morning began to thin the black at the cave mouth, and the birds, one by one, began again to sing. The child lived, that morning and the next, and enough of them strung together to grow, and to carry a child of its own one day to the deep middle of some other fire. That is the only reason you are here. Not metaphorically, actually. Every single person who has ever lived is descended from a child that something in the dark would happily have eaten, and did not, because someone stayed awake. The line you come from is unbroken all the way back, and at every link in it there was a night like this one, and someone who did not lie down. We've forgotten the dark now. We've pushed it so far back with our walls and our locks and our lights that never go out that we mistake the quiet for the natural state of things. It isn't. The quiet was bought. It was paid for, night after sleepless night, across more years than the mind can hold, by people whose names are gone, and whose whole heroism was that they kept a fire going, and a small body, close. You still feel the edge of it. Anyone who has lain awake listening to a child breathe in the next room knows the exact shape of her fear. Even now, even safe. The dark doesn't come for our children anymore, But the part of us that stays awake just in case, that never quite learned it could stop. If sitting inside these old nights is something you want more of, this channel will keep lighting them. Stay close to the fire. We'll keep it going.